right, I'm back here today with Kyla Chanel, resident Purple Patch nutritionist, and today we're going to talk about the consequences of poor nutrition. We all know the value of good nutrition, but first we should frame this discussion. At Purple Patch, we actually often talk about the difference between fueling and nutrition. So let me reframe that really quickly, mostly as an educational tool for our athletes and the way that we go about it. So we think about fueling as being the calories that you consume during and immediately following the workout. And that has a role when you start to think about the value of sugar and how that is actually a contributing component to things like your race strategy and how you're going to fuel for racing. Your nutrition is your breakfast, lunch, and dinners and snacks, so your platform of healthy eating. So what we want to focus on today is that component, daily eating habits, and what happens when we get it wrong.
Right.
Perhaps a nice place to start is the headline news stuff, sugar. Why is sugar, like the overconsumption of sugar, a really bad thing for an athlete to do in their daily life? Remove exercise, remove training, remove racing. Let's just think about in the rest of their life and think about what sugar does to us if we overconsume it.
Sugars are usually hidden in these processed foods, and we might not even realize it. It's very easy to overconsume calories, not realizing that, a serving size of your cereal is really a half to 3/4 a cup, and people are pouring in, several cups,
Buckets worth, I would say, for me.
With potentially even some, who knows what types of milks they're using, which might have added sugars as well. And so it's very easy to overconsume those processed sugars. And when we do that, it's causing our insulin to spike, our energy to probably spike for a quick little bit before it's going to crash. And then we're going to feel probably a little bit lethargic. Maybe our energy, our mental focus is going to go down. We're going to affect our body composition negatively as well if we're causing our insulin to just spike and crash, consistently throughout the course of the day.
And you've got this, so there's sort of the insulin spike, which is, of course, over time, that becomes almost a gateway to being pre-diabetic, which is obviously a massive problem in our society globally. But then even if we just think about performance at work or performance in life, this sort of overconsumption of sugar is creating these huge energy swings as well, So lethargy, which you're not performing well, and going on from there, which is obviously a huge thing. It's also addictive.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
And so the more that you have, the more challenging it is to rid yourself.
You create a cycle with the sugar. You get that energy spike, you feel good, you're happy about it, then it crashes, then you're looking for more sugar to get that spike back up and get your energy level back up. And so it creates really a snowball effect, and it's a hard one to quit.
And it's tough for athletes because then at the same time we're saying, hey, in certain types of training, you're consuming sugar. And in fact, in your recovery, sugar is a part of recovery. And so if we identify sugar with energy, it doesn't always get stored as energy, So when we're consuming the rest of the day, it could be stored as fat,
Absolutely.
So explain what's happening there a little bit.
Yeah, so if we're consuming, like you said, taking out exercise out of the equation here or training, and we're consuming these large amounts of sugar and causing this large insulin spike, and our body's trying to find somewhere to put it. The muscles aren't screaming for any more energy to get sugar stored in as glycogen. So what's the body going to do? It's going to convert it into fatty acids, and those fatty acids are going to be stored into our adipose tissue or fat tissue to be used maybe never. We don't know.
And that's on the hips or on the tummy.
Right,
so,
yeah.
And that doesn't help if you're an athletic, if you're a performance-driven person, carrying additional fat is not going to help you, of course, is it?
Definitely not going to help you, right?
Now, sugar isn't the only nutrition mistake. There are other nutrition, and of course, the second one that we could come to is the overconsumption of calories.
Right, yeah.
So what happens there?
Yeah.
Some of it's obvious, but I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah. You can overconsume calories and be eating really clean food as well. It's harder to do, but it can be done. And when we do overconsume calories, we are going to probably be putting on weight. You're probably going to be noticing a steady increase in weight gain. You're probably also going to be noticing probably a little bit of like lethargy or energy slumps post these larger, higher calorically dense meals. And so,
does that come in? Sorry to interrupt there, but does that come in with like the big lunch. We used to call it the martini lunch,
Yeah.
where you go and have the 2 martinis with the big meal.
Yeah.
And that's afterwards where people have this huge energy slump. And of course, that's cognitive function, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're trying to perform at work
Right.
and you can't.
Your blood's shifting away from your brain and your other tissues to go and help aid in digestion and breakdown of this huge meal you just consumed.
That's what's really is, because it's blood always is in competition with the different roles that we have for it.
Right.
Yeah, we're a closed system, so we only have so much. You eat a big meal, it all goes there, and it doesn't go to your brain energy.
Yep.
And it brings you back to actually sugar. Just quickly, the overconsumption of calories. If we are eating, unfortunately, these hidden sugars that occur in food or refined sugar globally, that doesn't satiate people well either, does it?
Right. Yeah.
That's another component. So it tends to lead people to consume more calories than they're even aware of.
Right. Processed foods aren't going to give you fiber for the most part unless it's added in, separately as its own ingredient. And the fiber is going to help with the decreasing the insulin spike. It's naturally present in fruits and vegetables, right? So they have their own perfect little system with their types of sugar that's not going to cause as dramatic of an insulin spike as, a cup of cereal or something.
Sure, that makes sense. So another thing I actually want to talk about is Coke. Actually, not the sugary Coke, but diet sodas and fake sugars and things that are out there. Because I think a lot of people, athletic minded, that are conscious of body composition, will reach for the Diet Coke, will reach for the Splenda when it comes to putting something sweet in your coffee at Starbucks in the morning. But that's not a good thing. Yeah, that has a cascading effect of consequences. So why is it where it's 0 calories, but it's this fake sugar? Why is that bad for an athlete?
Right.
Why is it bad for a person?
So not only is it not real food, right? We want to be consuming whole, real, unprocessed foods, but it's highly processed. And it's also designed chemically to trick our body in the sense where we taste the sweetness on our tongue, but we're not able to break down the molecule and absorb the calories from it.
Okay.
What's going on is that molecule is actually affecting our gut microbiome. And our gut microbiome is really amazing in the sense where it can actually signal to our brain via our vagus nerve what foods they want to consume. And so if we're allowing the growth of these gut bacteria that are breaking down this Splenda, for example, they're going to begin to thrive over time and actually push out probably some of your good gut bacteria. And that's going to be problematic down the road. We're going to have probably cravings later in the day too for actual true sugar because our body sensed that it was coming in via our tongue, but we never actually got it into our stomach and our intestines.
So it almost feels like, hang on, I've sensed it's there, it's not there, you need to go and get it.
Right.
Me. So it's actually just by consuming those types of calories or products, it's a very similar thing to almost what I always talk about, putting yourself in athletic starvation, where you train and you don't refuel. Later in the day, you have these huge cravings that makes portion control really tough.
Right, yeah.
Proper food choice is almost impossible, and you end up sort of breaking and going for the cake and the pizza and the ice cream, just because of that catalyst. So net when you layer it over many days, many weeks, many months, it's a gateway to poor habits in many ways. Even with that itself, it's interesting. Now I will say that's really poor nutrition, and yet there is a very real role, a performance role for Coke in racing and in training.
Correct. Yes.
But that's a very different lens, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And that's another place where people get really confused too, right? And so the true Coke with true sugar, not your diet zero Coke or whatever you want to call it, but that's actually going to be that glucose or carbohydrate that's going to be very easily to digest. It's, it's not necessarily coming from like a sweet potato, for example. It's in a liquid form. It's going straight into our digestive system. Very easy to absorb and utilize and put straight into our muscle for fuel. So
it's rocket fuel on the race course.
Yes.
And it sort of further empowers that differentiation between the mindset necessary for fueling when you're in a race, where it is your rocket fuel when necessary at the back end of the race or very high intensity training, and good nutrition.
Yes.
We're not thinking about supporting the system with great nutrition when you're on the race course.
Right.
We're thinking about maximizing performance.
Right, correct.
And I think for all athletes, you really have to shift the mindset depending on the situation that you're in.
Absolutely.
Everyone understands that this sport is demanding. They need to train a lot, and everyone's motivated to train a lot. And so they're doing a lot of training, and quite often there's a lack of calories to support the amount of training that's necessary. And that's a really large nutrition mistake as well. Do you see that commonly amongst athletes?
I do. That's a hard one for people to implement too, because they don't necessarily always want to increase their calories. They have a fear of doing that. And so, but you have to look for those signs. Are you not improving from your performance? Is your body not wanting to let go stored body fat? Is it storing more body fat? Those are all signs that you are actually under consuming your calories, and you're overtraining while under consuming your calories, and it's causing your body to stay in this stressed state and want to hold on to that body fat. And any food that you do consume, it's wanting to store it and save it the best it can.
I think that's a really important point, almost a red flag. You're training hard, you're doing plenty of hours, and yet you're retaining body fat.
Right.
The equation there, the solution there is sometimes, hang on, you might be doing too much training that you can absorb, or certainly, most importantly, to your point, you're not consuming enough calories, which is so counterintuitive. But it's a massive thing. So these athletes end up storing fat, losing muscle mass in many ways, because they're not getting the calories. And of course, that has a cascading from a coach's lens. We disrupt consistency of training.
Right.
Probably muscle repair.
Yeah.
So you've got a gateway to more frequent sickness, more frequent injury, and components like that. So it starts to have this cascading effect, not just on body composition and energy, but actually your global performance equation. What else are we missing? Are we missing any other bad consequence of poor nutrition, or did we nail it?
I think we nailed it.
Good stuff. So there are plenty of consequences, and therefore it's a good setting of your lens to ensure that we value nutrition. Thanks so much, Kyla. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.